All right, good evening. We're going to open the Zoning Board of Adjustment hearing tonight, November 26th, 6:30, just after. We have as voting members Pam Sanderson, Justin Miller, Brenda DiMaggio, and myself, Matt Fowler, with Susan Austin.
Now let's see if you can remember my name.
There's no way.
No way.
I recognize you 5 years from now. But
I'm Laura Spector Morgan. I'm the town's attorney.
has anybody had a chance to look at the minutes, any adjustments? Or a motion?
Yes. You want to do the motion first and then entertain the corrections? Motion to accept the minutes?
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion?
On the page 3, at the start, the 5 criteria for granting the variance to article, we've got mixed letters and numbers in there. I believe it was residential density, which is Article 4, Section B. Does everybody concur with that? Do you have something?
Oh, I have a couple corrections also. Page.
Start putting numbers on the line.
Made and seconded the motion.
He wants his name in the minutes.
No, I don't. Page 5, top quarter says Mr. Miller made a motion to continue case 1804 until November 26th meeting. Mr. Miller seconded the motion.
All right.
I don't.
You're not allowed to do both.
Well, let's listen to the tape, but I was, there's really,
I believe I did make the motion, but I don't believe I seconded. And also the same thing, page 7 at the very bottom. Miss Brenda made a motion to adjourn at 8:28. I second the motion. I was not here at that time, so I don't know who made that motion.
It's probably
Likely
me.
it was probably Matt.
Yeah, it's probably me.
But,
Well, oh, okay.
I can go back and listen
Yeah,
to make sure that,
That's all I have.
yeah, you had left.
Take my name.
do we withdraw that motion or just?
you can table them until the next one, if you want.
Or you can just approve them as amended.
Yeah. And then if there's any
Yeah.
change, they can always, you
So,
can just go back and fill in the correct name.
What are seconds to you?
Do you have to make a
It's
new
not
motion?
substantive.
Just take a look at them.
I would amend the original motion. Sorry,
Would you like
I'll
to
leave.
amend the
You
original
can
motion?
look at these if you want.
let me see, a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
Second
I
that.
have a motion. I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, as we go into the first case and the subsequent cases, if you would just remind the applicants, we only have 4 members, to be sure they're comfortable to proceed with 4.
Actually, that brings up another question too. Last meeting, we did a 45 minutes per. We have a full caseload again today. Is there any discussion on wanting to put a time frame or time parameter on these, or do you want to just run through and see where we go?
Doesn't matter. I just have, I have to leave at 9 o'clock. I have to go to work, so I don't know what you guys think about that. Looking at what we have in front of us today. That's 2.5 hours.
My opinion is to at least hear the cases, to keep the cases moving versus take up the entire time with just one case. But I don't know how you guys feel. Any,
Well, I would suggest you address that in an hour. I think the other two are special exceptions. They're fairly clear cut, as opposed to what's involved with this case. I would proceed, and then if you feel like you're not making enough ground in an hour, then open it back up. But
Even if we hear what their case and we get to the hour mark, we can always, I think, stop at that point and we can deliberate and have a response next meeting for them. I think that's a good idea.
all right, so we'll just see where this goes. That being said, first case. Again, just like last time we were here, we would love to have a 5-member board, but we only have 4 members. If that's okay with you, we'll continue.
That's acceptable, yeah.
All right. So first case, Northwood Mountain View Development, case 1804. This is a continued case. Applicant seeks relief on a few different variances. The first variance that we're looking at is 4B. Would you like to?
Well, if it's acceptable to the board, what I'd like to do is to, first of all, in general fashion, make some observations on some of the concerns that were raised the last time. And then I would like to move into, after that, I'd like to move into a discussion. Now, my notes from this last time indicate that we did the expansion of the non-conforming use. I mean, frankly, the arguments, one simply stems from the other, but I mean, I'm prepared to next address 4B3 or the expansion of the non-conforming use.
And in reading through your minutes, it does appear that what you addressed was Article 7C, not 4B.
Okay.
So, in terms of the minutes,
We'll just cross out that little D after 7.
all right,
Leave it at section C.
so, as amended to the little d. Okay, Suzanne, thank you. Thank you for that.
That'll be further business after. Yes, I think a general overview or new information that you'd like to talk about
Sure.
to get this started is great.
Sure, okay. So what I'd like to do to start, because what we heard a lot last week was, or not last week, last month I guess it was, whenever we were here last, was concern about density and how this proposal will increase the density on the existing manufactured home park. What we will be talking about tonight is a couple of things. One is the fact that the exact language of the ordinance, and I'm going to read some sections of that, supports why there is no violation of the public purpose with what we're proposing to do, and why there's no substantial relationship between the purpose and the application here. Also, as we indicated the last time, the area, the physical space between the 4 lots that we propose to create and the existing manufactured home park is not allowed to be used by the manufactured home park residents, nor, for that matter, will the new 4 lots be allowed to do that. What I'd like to do just quickly is to show you, this is a plan that Chris prepared, and we have smaller versions, although this I think shows it better, and we can submit this for the record. But what you'll see here is, this is the park, and Chris, can I borrow your red pen? Yeah. All right, so, oh, that's even better. This line here denotes where the boundary of the park itself is, where the park residents can utilize the area. This is the boundary of where the 4 lots are being proposed. And this crosshatched area in the middle will remain as part of the park property, but this crosshatched area is not allowed to be used by park residents. It has not been allowed to be used in that manner for the umpteen number of years that it's been in operation, and nor will it allowed to be allowed to use once these 4 lots go in. We have a park rule which reads, tenants are not allowed on the property beyond the no trespassing sign at the bottom of Pheasant Lane. This area is designated for utilities, septic fields, and water wells. And I have copies of this that I can pass around if you want to look. It's the sentence after number 27, and we have a copy for the recording secretary as well.
I'm sorry, repeat where we are looking.
You are looking at the sentence which is listed after rule number 27. It's on the 3rd page. At this point, I would ask Fred to just provide a little context to and explain himself why the park residents are not allowed to use this cross-hatched area.
Well, it's, as you explained, it's, our septic systems are down there, our wells are down there, we have a pump house down there, and we have a liability. There's power down there for the pumps and all that stuff, and we don't want anybody down there. We want the kids down there playing or sledding or anything like that, because it's a utility area, you know? And we've had that no trespassing sign up forever. People don't go down there, they know better. So I'm adamant about that, and
there's also enforcement provisions in the park rules, too, should somebody decide to violate that. If the board has a concern as well about this park rule not being utilized in the future, we'd also be amenable to talking with you about a reasonable condition of approval that would ensure that this arrangement continues on in the future. I just mentioned that in passing right now. We don't need to talk about it, but I just wanted to let you know that that's out there too. So the other concern that I did hear about, and maybe Chris can talk to this more succinctly than I can, but there was some concern expressed the last time about the shape or the presence of wetlands or steep slopes in some of the lots that are down that we're proposing. I guess what I'd say in response to that is that we have designed these proposed lots to comply with the steep slopes and to comply with the wetlands. In fact, we dropped one of the lots because it wasn't going to comply with the steep slopes. So our intent has been to, in designing these 4 lots, minimize the amount of relief that we would be requiring, and to ensure that the purpose of the, and for the variances requested to ensure that the purpose is not violated. So I guess beyond that, while we acknowledge some of the comments that have been made by board members about the shape and whatnot, but really that's not within the purview of this board. The board is here to talk about the density, and really that's it. So, and Chris, maybe you could address, if you would, the fact that all of these lots here are very much buildable lots, and here, do you want me to pass them around this way? Or?
No, I went that way.
Okay.
I know there was a question at the last meeting about the configuration and how we came up with a lot of areas. So I let that get passed around and we can kind of look at it. Because I didn't know, I think you guys all had 11 by 17, so this is kind of a big scale cutout which shows topography, the steep slopes, the wetlands. And really, you know, when we took this project on, we wanted to, you know, we knew the density issues was a variance with this board, but we wanted to make sure that the 4 lots proposed were standalone, meeting the town of Northwood's regulations as is. So again, if you look at the triangle lot on the far left, the lot's actually 2.32 acres in size. The steep slopes, which we've subtracted, the 7,600 square feet, effective area of 93,000 square feet, but then you also have in your regulations 1 acre of contiguous. So we designed, again, you know, we work with the regulations that you provide. So we like lot 1 is 43,589 square feet, meeting the 1 acre. And we can go, again, if you want, we can go kind of across the board. Lot 2 is 2.97 acres, again, exceeding the 2 acres. But we've got, again, the steep slopes, which in your requirements, you have steep slopes of over 25%. That's, we didn't count. But again, it's, if you're out there to do a site walk, it's beautiful white pine forest and a nice steep slope. So it's not unusable land for a homeowner. So he's actually gaining almost an extra acre of land. So we took the effective steep slopes out. And then now we actually have 100,000 square feet of contiguous area as part of your requirements. And then kind of moving right across to lot 3. So again, it's a 2.17 acre lot with 7,000 square feet of steep slopes, effective area of 80,000 square feet, but contiguous area is 85,000. So you almost have 2 acres of contiguous on lot 3. And then lot 4, 2.03 acres with about 1,000 square feet of steep slope, effective area of 87,000, but again, a contiguous area of 43,827. So again, over an acre of your requirement. So again, we wanted to make sure that the 4 lots, after tonight's proceedings, if we move forward to go to the planning board, these lots would meet the town of Northwood's straight face lots on their own merit. And we actually enhanced the design a little bit more by providing the 75-foot well radiuses, showing a 24 by 36 house, driveways, and where a leach field can be placed. So again, we wanted to kind of took it to the extra step, for this board. It's something we would do at the planning board level, but we wanted to go a little bit more to put this board at ease of what we were providing would meet the town standards.
So with that, what I'd like to do, and obviously I'm happy to entertain questions at any time from any of the board members, but what I'd like to do now is to move into a discussion about Article 4B3, which is what I call the base density, residential density variance request, as opposed to the density request that's affiliated with the wellhead ordinance or the district. So for the base density, what I'd like to do is to start with a discussion of the purpose of that ordinance. And I'm doing that because the purpose of the ordinance really has application to the first criteria, which is that the variance will not be contrary to the public interest, and it also has application to the hardship criteria. Because that goes to the issue of whether there's a fair and substantial relationship between the purpose of the ordinance and its application to the property in question. So the language itself, just reading from the purpose section of your ordinance, it says that it's designed, or the purpose is to control of residential density is an important component in addressing many of the general purposes of this ordinance, including lessening vehicle congestion in the streets, preventing overcrowding of land, avoiding undue concentration of population, facilitating adequate provision of public facilities, utilities, and services. I would say that the proposal that we're talking about, particularly in light of the discussion that we just had here tonight, indicates that our proposal, in which there will be 4 lots at one end of the property and an existing manufactured home park at the other, is consistent with the purpose of this, and that the language in your ordinance itself supports that notion. In addition to that, I took a look at some of the old cases which talk about some of these concepts, and there's a case called Harrington versus the Town of Warner that was decided. And I would argue that the ruling of this case is applicable to all of the variance requests that we're making. And this case pertains to a mobile home park. It was a 46-acre parcel, and it was a manufactured home park and a campground site. 26 acres of the park were used, which contained 33 manufactured home parks. The property owner wanted to add an additional 26 units on the remaining 20 acres. The zoning ordinance explicitly capped the number of manufactured home units at 25. What the Supreme Court said here was that the variance should be granted, that special conditions existed for this property, which were the existing mobile homes themselves, and what was characterized as a swamp, which I guess means wetlands. They were otherwise not particularly usable. And the fact that the mobile homes themselves were a permitted use. In this case, I think if you take those comments or those issues and apply them here, we have, our proposal consists of residential use, which is proposed. The proposed lots comply in all other respects besides the density issues. Complies with frontage, complies with lot size, complies with all the other things. The mobile homes on these parks already exist, and due to the discussion that we've just had about the fact that the proposed 4 lots will not be going into the area which is crosshatched, and about the fact that the manufactured home residents can't go into that crosshatch area as well, nothing about these 4 lots, if they come into existence, will encroach further into the rights or the use of the park residents. Their ability to use their homes and their little lot areas immediately around their homes will remain completely intact, and it will not change as a result of this. So that's...
What year was that case?
Pardon me?
What year was that case?
That was done under 2005, which was before it was, well, they decided it was a use issue because it was related to density.
Okay.
And so it was analyzed under the simplex standard rather than the statutory one, but the principles are still applicable.
Thank you.
So then, I just want to, and if you don't mind, I'm going to jump around a little bit because I think it might just be the most efficient way to present this. For the density requirement for the wellhead, which is Article 6D, or did we decide that we addressed that already? No, I'm confused too.
No, you did not.
I did that.
No, you did not.
No, you didn't.
Okay, all right, well, let me read this then. So, the purpose of this ordinance is to protect the quantity and quality of groundwater, with a particular emphasis on protecting new or existing sources of public water supply. So this section of the ordinance doesn't even reference any of the other issues that were referenced in the, so what I call the base residential requirement about overcrowding, et cetera, et cetera. This is purely designed to protect groundwater. And again, for all of the reasons that I just cited, I believe that our proposal is consistent with the purpose of this ordinance, and therefore we are not contrary to the public interest, and we meet the fair and substantial relationship under the purpose as well. As Chris mentioned last time, and I want to repeat this, we are not in the aquifer. The only basis on which we are in this district at all is because there's a community water supply which services the park. So that just underscores the fact that we're going to have wells for these 4 lots. The home park has their own well, and so there's really no relationship between the purpose of this and the application. So with that, I just want to, I guess what I'll do at this point is to run through briefly some of the other criteria for B4, and then I'll do a similar exercise for the other ones, if that's acceptable, or is that going to be too confusing?
Yes, I think we should just,
Which one did you just B4, B4?
4B3 is
4B3?
yeah.
And I'm sorry, Matt.
do you think we should start by going, just grab one variance at a time and go through so we not getting so mixed up with each other a little bit? At least I'm feeling like it's getting mixed up. I can't keep the numbers together.
I can do that.
Maybe.
Yeah, for
As
the
a side
record.
note, were there any abutters present?
No.
We should do that. Are there any butters or people affected that would like to speak?
Just have to ask.
Yeah, do you want to just start taking one variance at a time and then vote on those 5 and
That's normally what we do.
keep moving? Yeah, because we're going on, I'm getting confused.
No, and I understand that. It's kind of a difficult proposal to make because one concept kind of builds on the next. So there's a certain amount of overlap between the two, and I think I've done the overlap piece now, so let me, for the record, try to address each of them on their own, if that's acceptable.
Right, which variant should we start with? We have,
Well, in my discussion with the board, I think your concern really related to the residential density of these 4 new lots is a big part of what we discussed. So what the board expressed to me, and I'm going to convey to you, if it's okay with the board, setting aside the fact that there's the manufactured housing park, if you were to come in with a plan that was just this, just these 4 lots in the Wellhead Protection District, why would these 4 lots be entitled to a density variance in the Wellhead Protection District?
Well, I think the answer to that question, you can't ask that question without the background of the manufactured house park. Okay. If there was no manufactured house park, that would in turn mean that there would be no community well system. And also, we would still not be in the aquifer district. I think it would be a different application.
But let's assume you were still in the district.
If we were still in the district, but I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that we are not in the aquifer district,
Right.
or not in the aquifer.
Right.
We are in this district solely by virtue of the community well.
Yep.
So if we were to say that the manufactured housing park was not there, the community water system was not there, and we are still not in the aquifer.
Well, let me rephrase it then. What if the manufactured housing park was there, the community well was there, and this was just an abutting piece of property that you wanted to come in, completely different owner, wanted to come in and subdivide it into 4 lots? Is that sort of
clear to me.
Okay.
The question there,
Go ahead.
I guess from an engineering standpoint, I look at, your section article is kind of an odd zoning. I mean, we're going to abide by it, but I mean, I would have to look at it from an engineering standpoint, from a groundwater hydrology standpoint. You were at the last hearing, but when I look at the remaining parcel of 36 acres,
Yep.
and I look at the well yields
Yep.
and what they're doing, and I look at the hydraulics of transportation and rainfall and what's coming in, this wellhead area and that radius far exceeds the capacity that they need.
Okay.
So we would be looking for relief on something that is over strict to the abutters. It's actually a land use taking.
So I guess what I would say in answer to the question is that it would be a different application, but at the same time, for the reasons that Chris has just talked about, I think a lot of the reasoning might be the same.
Okay.
I mean, I think that the facts that we are presenting to this board, which are the facts that you have to consider, not the other hypothetical that Laura's just presented to you, are the ones that you have to consider, and that is a community well system. However, even if the manufactured home park wasn't there, even if the community well system wasn't there, I would say that while it might be a closer call, a closer decision on the part of the board, I think there would still be a compelling argument that the purpose of the wellhead district would still not have application because of the fact that we're not in the aquifer and because of the fact that the proposed wells serving those 4 lots would not impact the groundwater.
Okay.
if the board has any questions, I think we should just fire away.
I'd like to yield, and when you come around.
Do you want me to, what's the board's pleasure at this point? Do you want me to pick one of the variances and just start discussing them, or?
Or would you just prefer some questions from us on all that you've just said and then go into an individual variance?
Well, how would you normally do it?
Normally we pick a variance and go.
Well,
Let's do that.
okay.
Perhaps what you could do is I could take each individual variance, and then you could question me after the individual variances. Would that make more sense? It might provide us a little bit more structure to the discussion.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll pick a variance,
Okay,
we'll ask the questions, then we'll vote on that variance.
sure, okay.
The variance of residential density, which,
I think that's 4B.
4B.
And really, that's tied in
With
to
the other ones.
7D, because the residential density talks about units per acre being 1 per 4, but then it refers you to 60. So really, are they tied together?
Yes, I would say so.
They essentially all are, especially with non-conforming.
So maybe we'll take, and I know under 6D, we also have this issue of the cluster development, but maybe if we do the two density
Yeah.
ones together, does that make sense for the board?
right?
Okay.
All right, so at this point, we're going to talk about 4B and any questions relating specifically to that. And then we'll read the 5 questions and we'll vote on that. And that'll keep things clean, kind of the way we've always done it.
Okay.
So at this point, if the board has any questions, we'll ask the questions. I'll read the 5 questions.
And then I respond to those? Okay. Oh, there it is.
Oh. Matt, you want this? You're looking for this?
Okay, question 1. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest because,
So this is 4B for the residential density.
correct.
So, okay, so the variance which would allow this lot to be developed with the 4 lots will not alter the essential character of the locality, and it will not threaten public health, safety, or welfare. As I've said before, the purpose of this ordinance is to prevent overcrowding. Because of the configuration and the manner in which the entire lot is used, it's not going to alter the essential character of the locality. And on the Bow Street side, that consists of single-family residential homes, so it's not going to alter the essential character of Bow Street either. Nor will it threaten the public health, safety, or welfare of the area. So that's the answer to that particular criteria.
The spirit of the ordinance is observed. These aren't exactly the same questions, but
They're related.
what's that?
Spirit of the ordinance and public interest are related.
The spirit of the ordinance is observed, as my knowledge says. What do you got?
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Town Council. The Supreme Court has interpreted spirit and intent as being the same as the criteria that I just read, which is the not contrary to the public interest. So the answer that I just read is really applicable to this criteria as well.
And 3 substantial justice is done?
Yes, substantial justice is done by granting a variance to 4B, which is the residential density, because we will be able to then to develop these lots to benefit the public at large, because 4 house lots will then become available, 4 single-family house lots will become available to residents of Northwood or other residents. And then, by contrast, the proposed subdivision will not create a detriment to any individual or to the public as at large. As you know, that this is a balancing test, and there's really nothing that can be identified as a detriment to the public which would outweigh the benefit which is going to come to the applicant.
The values of surrounding properties are not diminished?
They will not be diminished because what we're proposing to do is to install or to have single-family residential houses. These are consistent with the use in the surrounding properties, particularly those on Bow Street.
Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship.
Yes, this, as you know, is comprised of two pieces. One is special circumstances that distinguish it from other properties in the area, and I'll address that first. This is an existing lot with an existing manufactured home park, which has been in operation since 1985 or thereabouts. And during the entire time of that operation, the area to the south of Pheasant Lane, is that what it is? To the south of the line that's marked up there, the yellow line, has been not allowed to be used by manufactured home residents. And therefore, adding a use on the, Chris, help me out, what's the direction on Bow Street? Is that the southerly direction, southwesterly direction? The creation of 4 lots on the southwesterly side of the lot will not encroach upon or impact the manufactured homes. So those are really the special conditions of this particular lot. There's no fair and substantial relationship between the purpose of the ordinance and its application to the property in question, which I've really just described. The purpose is to prevent congestion, and because of the absence of any impact to the existing manufactured home, it really isn't going to increase the impacts of density that might be felt in other particular factual circumstances. The proposed use is reasonable. As we've talked about, we have really tried very hard to propose or make a proposal which is not going to be excessive in terms of the number of lots that we're doing. And in order to do that, we actually shaved off one of the lots in order to make them conforming with all the requirements other than density. So we think this is a reasonable and appropriate number of lots to ask for.
All right, at this time, we'll go around the table.
And just so the board members know, if you have any questions you want to ask me in private, we can adjourn the meeting to do that.
All right. In going through your 5 criteria and considering that I am looking at your 4 lots, can you give me the particular criteria relating to these 4 lots, specifically within your 5 statements? We're seeing a lot here about the adjoining property, or what would become the adjoining property. But I want to know what makes this special and unique, these 4 lots.
Well, my understanding is that right now I'm addressing 4B3, which is the base residential density requirement. So my position is that we have to consider the impact on the density of the lot in total, which would include these 4 lots as well as the manufactured home. I can certainly address density for those 4 lots when we get to the wellhead protection piece.
Okay.
But
So you wish to include residential density of the entire acreage as part of this additional. So we are taking a residential an acreage that is already highly residential, and making it more non-conforming to that status. So I'm just looking for this, these 4. Why these 4? What's special down here?
I guess I'm not following your question. We are here asking for relief from the variance, which indicates that you can't make a non-conforming aspect or use more non-conforming.
Correct.
Which we'll get to in a minute. We are here asking for relief about the base residential density requirements, which is what we're talking about right now, and then the density which comes from a property being within the wellhead protection district.
Correct.
My view is that in order to analyze whether there are circumstances which would justify this board using the safety valve of the variance, that you have to look at this property in total.
Correct.
And determine whether or not allowing these 4 parcels will be inconsistent with the purpose of your base density requirements. And my argument is that it will not, for all of the reasons that I've just cited. I think you have to look at it in the context of the other uses that are on that lot.
Okay, so it leads me personally, Mr. Chairman, to a conundrum because it is so linked to the other two variances that it's really hard to separate this particular 4 lots, residential density, to look at them separately without considering the whole. And once you consider the whole, we're looking at high residential density. And so that's where I reach the stumbling block. So if I need to look at these as a separate entity, that they're special, unique, and warrant continuation with this and the other variances, getting over the hurdle of the full acreage is where I am. So it's kind of like I'm in a quandary of not quite knowing what to do with this first variance because it is so closely linked with the other two.
I think that's true, and so if this board wanted to deviate from its normal practice of voting on each variance separately, and hear everything related to all 3 variances, and then we can have a further discussion about what you feel overall, we could certainly do that. Or you can look at it sort of on its own. Is adding 4 more units to this entire parcel, does that, standing on its own, justify variance?
Yeah, I think that's what I was asking.
Okay.
Could you repeat that, please?
Sure. I was saying that the board could either hear all of the variances at once and then have a sort of a roundup discussion at the end. Or it could consider this first variance on its own, and the question for this variance on its own is there grounds for a variance to add 4 more units to this overall lot? And I'm not playing on my phone, I'm reading the Harrington case.
Okay.
Do you hear? I've got it if you want
I know, okay.
to. Okay.
That was my...
My question in regards to the residential density, the purpose states clearly lessening vehicle congestion in the streets. Even if you look at the whole lot, Bow Street is pretty small as it is. Now you're putting 4 houses down there. I mean, who knows? It could be 1 vehicle, it could be 5 vehicles. You're not lessening vehicle congestion in the streets. That's my issue with this residential density.
That's just kind of where I stand on that. I don't know if you have anything in regards to that, but, you know, I mean,
Bow Street the whole way is small. I've driven down there.
I guess I'd say a couple of things. One is that I don't see any abutter opposition, and I would think that if anyone was going to be concerned about traffic congestion or the impacts of these 4 lots, they would be the abutters. And to the best of my understanding, there has been no opposition and no one's here. So the other thing is that traditionally, of course, the idea of a variance, as you know, is you give them under extraordinary circumstances. And I don't think 4 lots with the attendant vehicles that are going to be on those 4 lots is all that much in terms of traffic congestion. We're not talking about a large subdivision here, which I think would be more to the point that you're making. And I think that in the alternative, too, that there is supposed to be part of what this, or I guess the chief thing that this board does, is to act as a safety valve when the actual literal application of the ordinance is going to be what Peter Laughlin calls oppressive or confiscatory. I'm not sure I would use the word confiscatory, but I do think, given the size of this lot and how it's configured, that there are extraordinary circumstances to allow the development of the southwesterly piece in a modest, reasonable manner, the 4 lots, as opposed to something more. I think that that is an appropriate means for this board to apply that safety valve.
I just can't help but wonder if going back in history, safety valves were applied in the creation and just allowing the mobile park to exist as it is, as out of compliance as it is. And I understand, I listened and I heard, I understand that that land where the hatch marks are doesn't get used and that you have rules. But it does seem that we could interpret what you want to do as promoting overcrowding within that mobile home park. I understand you're not putting more people in and that that land isn't occupied or used by the residents. But the spirit, I think that there has been a lot of compromise made in the past.
Well, I can't speak to what happened in 1985, but I do think each application that comes before you has to be determined on its own merits. The board can't worry about setting precedent and all that kind of thing, which I'm sure your town council will tell you. And on this particular set of facts, as I said, I respectfully disagree with you. I don't think that these 4 lots are going to increase the density experienced by the manufactured home park. They are really, they have a very limited pool of area that they can live in. These people, it's not like there's going to be some sort of a shared recreational, or that they enjoy some recreation space right now, which is going to be encroached upon by a bunch of little kids from these 4 lots coming in and bothering them. That's just not the case here. So I understand what you're saying, and in some respects it's kind of counterintuitive, but to say that there's not going to be an increase in density. But I think the difference is the literal use of the terms means that, you know, we have a dense manufactured home park. You're going to increase the number of bodies down at the other end of the property, but really the operations of this property, once these 4 lots are added, are not going to increase the density experienced by the park residents, and that's just a fact by virtue of the operation of the park and by virtue of the park rules. And if, as I said before, if the board wants some additional level of comfort or assurance, we can talk about having a condition of approval to ensure that those park rules remain in operation.
Sorry, I have one question. So and you read a part of this. It says the purpose is to control resident density, an important component in addressing general purposes of this ordinance. Lessening vehicle congestion. Yep, you've addressed it. I don't really have a problem with vehicle congestion there. Preventing overcrowding of land. Now, you stated that we should be talking about the entire lot of land already overcrowded. We do have that section that's zoned off. However, it is being used because we're using it as the leach fields. So it's still, it also says congestion of population, facilities adequate providing public facilities, utilities and services, which that falls under. So if it's already crowded, even though people aren't allowed there, it's still being used for that mobile home park. Now we're going to put 4 more residences on there. I need to know what is specifically unique about this entire property that I can crowd it with 4 more residents.
Well, I don't think, in my view, when this type of ordinance, the density ordinance, talks about overcrowding of land, in my experience, that usually means overcrowding of land with structures, with people, and so on. This area, the crosshatched area that's in the middle there, is essentially raw land. It happens to have a well on it, it happens to have a septic on it, but otherwise it's just occupied by deer and foxes and whatever else wanders in there. And so I don't think, I understand what you're trying to get at, but I think, given the circumstances of this case, I don't think that the term overcrowding of land is really applicable, because we're not going to be constructing anything else out there which is going to service either the park or these 4 lots.
Okay.
Did you guys all walk the property?
Driven Bow Street.
In back, Bow Street.
And up and around.
Did you walk up through the property?
I did not.
Did you?
No, I did not leave the car.
Last meeting, I thought you were all gonna...
You marked it and went down, drove, but no, did not go up on the land.
I mean, one thing I did, at the first hearing, I did go over the lot loading calculations for the soil analysis, and the remaining parcel far exceeds, that's what I worry about, is the environmental impacts, is I'm taking 4 lots away from the soil capacity of the remaining lots, the park itself. And we've got ample water supply, we've got ample sewage reserve areas. So again, that's the loss that we would worry about from an engineering standpoint.
Can I come around again?
Sure.
Thank you. And again, just dovetailing right off of that, the overcrowding of land and the avoiding of undue concentration of population. These things are interrelated. Essentially, this land, this acreage, has both the residential, it has the other facilities upon it, and it is in a, I would say it is currently at maximum residential density, which has been set at the 59 units. Adding 4 more, whether it be use of land, building structure, people, driveways, is adding to the overcrowding of the land, avoiding the undue concentration of population. All of that is adding in on this, taking it piece by piece. So I'm just not, I'm not on board with the 4 additional residences being added to this property. I see no uniqueness there. Now, in terms of whether the residents can use the property, that is the owner's purview. That is yours completely. Not something that we would have an effect on. That's your rules, and it's your right to put those rules in place. But it is, however, still the land, and the land does count for that density. So this is where my sticking block is.
And again, I would just say, going back to the general purpose of a variance, which is that there are some circumstances in which the literal application of something just does not work, just does not make sense.
And again, is this that situation?
I think it is. I think it is. I think that the density, a density ordinance to me means that you don't want to have a whole lot of people literally sitting in each other's laps in some sort of use of a property. And I personally can't, I mean, this is a pretty remarkable piece of property as I view it. You've got the property stretching between 2 roads. And so you literally have a situation where you can cordon off the density experienced by one end of the property and balance that off against another, so that the impacts of excess density will not be felt by either end of the property. That is very unique.
So just so I'm clear, so you're stating that that property is unique because it has that middle ground nobody can access. Is that what you just said?
I think it's unique for a couple of reasons. I mean, it's a unique configuration in that you've got a large chunk of land. I forget the exact number of acres that are here. One side fronts Route 4 that has an existing manufactured home park on it, which was approved 1 million years ago and has been in operation successfully all these years. And then the other end of the property fronts on an existing residential road, which has single-family homes right on the other side. And I think probably, I can't say for certain, but I suspect that those house lots are probably of similar size to what we're talking about here. And so then you have this area in between, which acts as kind of a natural buffer between the density needs of the Route 4 side of the property and the density needs of the Bow Street side of the property. So I think all of those things taken together, coupled with the fact that we are not going to be impacting aquifer, or not in the aquifer, coupled with the fact that the community well is going to be sacrosanct with the manufactured home park, means that there are some pretty unique circumstances for this property.
Okay, thank you.
Before we, well, maybe we should have a motion first, so we can just close public hearing.
Well-
Actually, I would like more input from the attorney.
Yeah.
I was gonna do
I think we
that.
should take a break and have a chat. And we could leave the room, and can we still go downstairs, Linda?
We can leave, there's more of you.
There's a lot.
Oh, no, there's all those people out there.
So, at 7:30, we're gonna,
Temporarily adjourn.
temporarily adjourn. Okay. All right. We are back in session at 7:40. So we just met with council, and we believe you brought up a number of new facts or points, and I hate to do this, but I'm going to suggest that we continue this till the next meeting. Our council will be in touch with you with a few of the things that we discussed.
Okay.
But really do hope to have it buttoned up and vote on all these variances next meeting, which would be December 17th at 6:30.
Okay, and I will discuss with town council as well some of the things that we're considering.
Yeah.
Under the guise that if this comes back on the 17th, what am I doing on the 17th? Are you guys going to be around?
And just so you know, Sharon, I cannot be here on the 17th,
Yes.
but I will be in contact with the board ahead of time.
So, you got January, if you want, if you,
I'm not sure you want to push this out to January.
Well, I want Fred here
I won't-
Okay.
I can't be here.
on the 17th.
17th.
Are you going to be around at all in January?
Depends on the date.
January 28th.
So they're all Mondays.
We will be here on January 28th.
That works better for me as well, so if that works for you.
Okay.
Okay. But we will still talk in the
Yes.
next couple of weeks.
Yep. Okay, so January 28th it is. Well, I'll have forgotten about it by then.
no,
It's a new year.
no.
I know two
For
people
what it's worth, I
who
think
have
tonight's
forgotten.
meeting was really good. I think we brought some points. And
Good.
for some reason, the vocabulary was a little bit different.
Yeah,
And so it got us thinking, so.
yeah, okay.
I would like to make a motion to continue case 1804 to January 28th
At 6:30.
at 6:30.
I second.
I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. 28th. January 28th.
Thank you, Laura.
Write it on here.
Why don't you give a copy to the record?
All right.
Got one? Okay.
Next. You going to Florida? Nice. Nice.
I'm not.
You're not staying long enough though for that for January.
Yeah, why would you come back in January? Goodness gracious. Probably got a Bob house out there or something, yeah? No? Jeez.
I do have one, actually.
Really? There you go. All right, so I still need minutes, so.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Me. No, Justin. Me. I actually need a new regulation book because my regulation book is falling apart.
But you waited here coming, so.
Thank you.
Will Santa be bringing me a new regulation book?
Yes, once they set the tree up here, they will. They'll be
Thank you.
All right,
Good night.
You have a Merry Christmas.
Night. Bye-bye.
we're gonna move on to case 1806, Ledgewood Realty Trust, Millstone Realty Trust, 1090 First New Hampshire Turnpike. We started this meeting last month. Got the date? 22nd. We went over it. Since then, we did a site walk. And I think we'd start with just the brief overview, if anything has changed since then.
No, just sort of, my name is Peter Holden from Holden Engineering. Just sort of reviewing where we are. When we first started with our application for the special exception for wetland buffer impact, and we don't have any wetland impact, we were talking about impact in this area, which is where the two wetland setback lines almost touch each other, and to get between the two wetlands, we needed to have an impact here. This is way out on the property, so let me orient you a little bit here. This is Route 4. This is the existing area where Dave sells material. This is the road that comes all the way out here, and this is the point right here where you can see out across. It's kind of a pond now. It didn't used to be a pond. It used to be, I don't know, there's trees out there, but. And then the power line is located right here. So when we went on the sidewalk, when I went on the sidewalk, we looked at an area here that was actually not under the power line wires, but after we discovered it was in the power line right away, as was this site here. We didn't walk out to this side out here because it's a long ways out there, and I'm not sure I could actually get you there without a little bit of help. So since we had that sidewalk, we had submitted our application to the planning board, and the planning board had a review done, and we got their comments. And one of the comments was that they thought the road should be wider, that there's a minimum, I think they call it the emergency access road width or something, 22 feet wide. And ours, should I be closer to that?
Sorry, I was just going to turn it towards you.
I could holler. It's not necessary.
Very direction.
So so what we did is we made the roads wider. We planned on making them wider. We changed our plans. And what that did was made it so that in this crossing where we walked across there, we weren't going to be able to upgrade that road and not get into the wetland. Also in an area up here where the road goes through, we wouldn't be able to widen the road enough. So what we are proposing to do is, in addition to these three locations that we previously requested a special exception for, we widened these two roads, added in this crossing, and added in this crossing at the wider width. And and we submitted on the October 31st a revised information.
They should have it.
Yeah, I have more some. But that list, just to be kind of paraphrasing, at the bottom of the front it says we've added these buffers A and B. This is A, this is B, and we adjusted the impact, the wetland buffer impact areas for C and D because the road's a little bit wider and we moved it a little bit. So that's really what's different. It's still, we're bridging over all those crossings, and so we won't have any wetland impact. The height above the water is generally going to be about 4 feet, so that critters that want to go underneath can certainly go underneath. And there'll be tons of capacity, so there won't be any constriction by a pipe or something like that. And once this all gets done, this land is supposed to go back into conservation. It's all going to be restored. And I guess they would leave the bridges there, although there's no purpose in it except for people to go out there, I guess. So people do go hunting out there. Anyways, I probably won't be around when I get to that point. I'll be around, I won't be here.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could speak. You have handed out to you the special exception section.
Yep.
And for the record, Ms. Winnie Young is in the audience, and she is here representing the Conservation Commission.
Good.
If the board has any questions relative to, and you have a copy of their original letter and their updated letter after the change was presented to them.
Maybe at this time, we'll open it up to the public if they have anything they'd like to say.
Probably this
That'll do
here
it.
is really the pertinent thing at this point, because we've seen the update
So
of graded bridges.
you've seen this with the 4 bridges?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And that was November 6th. And when did you submit the update plans?
Yeah, you're going to have to speak to the mic, Winnie, if you would just come up a set.
So this was given to, Mr. Golden came to our last meeting and showed us the upgrades, and we were concerned about the road, wetland crossings, and these bridges more than take care of any of our concerns.
Okay.
I would just ask, I mean, when that comes in, is that pre-formed and then set down? I don't know if we asked this or not, but in other words, how much impact of the wetland under being built?
What they're, the way they're going to probably build this, because we've been working on some different designs, and depending on the cost, it'll probably be a steel beams bolted together. So they would go on the existing road, they would dig a hole, build an abutment out of concrete. It's not going to be in the water, so it's going to be pretty easy to build. And then they would put steel beams on it, and then put a deck and railing on it, so that, and the rail is going to be, it's sort of like a Jersey barrier, but it's all connected together so that you can't knock it over. So, because one of the things he even now gets inspected by the Federal Mining Administration people, and so they're pretty picky about vehicles driving off from steep slopes and things like that. Because I work on a lot for a lot of gravel companies, and it's a big thing, big fines if they even think your truck could go over the side. Anyways.
Awesome, thank you. So what I think we should do is, I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask these 5 questions. Say you provided that information, or give us some more information, and then we'll close it with a motion and have some internal discussion and go from there.
Sure.
After the applicant meets with the Conservation Commission, findings by the Northwood Conservation Commission regarding the proposal are submitted with the special exception application. They're reviewed by the ZBA and made part of the record of the case, which we have that record in that letter. So actually, I don't need
Yeah,
anything.
they have all that.
Dredge filling or other alterations should be designed to minimize adverse impact on the wetlands and its setbacks, even if this requires adjustments in design outside of this overlay district.
Sorry, did you ask something? Sorry, Linda and I were talking. So.
Yeah, no
Number
problem.
2.
Number
Okay.
2, dredging, filling, and other alterations should be designed, et cetera, et cetera.
I think we have, if you've been out there, most of the brooks you could step over. They're like 5 feet wide. These bridges are like 30 feet long. And we did that, and the reason we did that was so that we could get to the top of the bank. So you might have a stream that's 5 feet wide, but then it slopes up, and it might be 20 feet wide at the top. So we're making it wider so that we're always well beyond the top of the bank. And so we have no impact on the... So I think making it longer wouldn't really do much except just make it longer. So...
There should be provisions made to restore the site as near as possible to its original grade and condition.
The the abutments are going to be set back so that there won't be any reason to go in the brook. I remember when we were up by the power line, I mean, the brook is like this wide, and you could see that they would cut some of the trees, and it's mostly just small trees in the brook itself or on the bank. Don't need to take the stumps out, just cut the trees off and then build a bridge on top of it. The stuff grows underneath it, it's okay. And so the restoration, there shouldn't be a lot of restoration because we're not going to disturb anything except for when we get to the end of the bridge and continue off. So.
State wetland permits should be obtained when required.
Yeah, we don't need to get one. And it says right in there that if you're beyond the top of the bank, you don't need to get a wetland permit. So there's a list of, these are the times you don't need a wetland permit. There's a section in there, and it's one of the sections.
Special exception is not required when the use meets the criteria for permit by notification as defined in New Hampshire Wetlands Bureau Code Administration Rules. If I have a motion, we could, or are there any questions for the applicant?
Matt, you need to ask if there's any butters present. I don't think there is, but
Are there any
Yeah,
abutters? Any abutters present? Seeing none. Thank you.
Just asking on the DES permit, because you were going to have to shift your road surface, and it wouldn't be just a road upgrade, do you need permitting to move that pathway over where you're going to move it?
No, as long as you're beyond the top of the bank.
For the bridge, I understand, but to move the road surface, it just seems like with all the marshland there that there should be some DES input or approval.
We are going to get an alteration of terrain permit,
Okay.
which is for the quarry portion. It's really, they deal with gravel pits and quarries that drain to the middle differently than do other wetland, other alteration of terrain. In places like coming down this hill, we'll have erosion control measures in place to treat the water.
Okay.
And we actually don't really need to detain it because it's on our property.
So there will be some DES involvement.
Yes, we have to get an alteration
Okay,
of terrain.
all right.
Yeah.
Because of the quantity of wetlands and the big woods. And I know that with the Conservation Commission, one of the original concerns was whether or not any DES involvement would be necessary.
Yeah.
So again, not knowing whose word to take, it was probably likely that if I motion for the exception or vote for the exception, it will be conditional on fulfilling any state and local requirements.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion to grant these special exceptions for, I assume it's for buffer impact A, B, C, D, and E?
That's correct.
Would that be your correct wording here? All right, so to grant the special exceptions to Ledgewood Trust for buffer impact A, B, C, D, E, conditional on any and all required state and local approvals being obtained.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
And discussion. If I may, the site walk was invaluable. Seeing what was going to be happening, the plan to restore, the plan to disturb as little as possible during the construction phase. I think they're doing everything possible to
Well, your
minimize the impact.
representative really did a good job explaining and going over this stuff, so.
I'm not gonna tell them that.
No, but he actually did, and he was a trooper, and it was quite the walk. And Linda, I just can't believe that you did not go, nor Lucy, you. Oh my goodness!
I think they went later.
I'm just way too old to do that. Oh my God!
There wasn't snow.
With the
was a little.
They made me
warmer.
wear this antler hat. It was pretty brutal.
Oh.
All right,
I
so
wish I did.
I'd like to call the vote, if possible, if there's no discussion.
Is there any more discussion? Seeing no discussion, Pam, how do you vote?
I vote in favor.
Justin?
In favor?
In favor.
And I also am in favor.
Okay, great.
Got it.
See you Thursday.
That's right.
And thank you to the council. We needed your input.
All right, we have a new case, case 1808, Colby Hoffman, Cole Brown Academy. Applicant wishes to construct a footbridge across a stream and seeks a special exception as specified in the zoning ordinance, Article 6, Section 5.
Oh,
If you don't mind, I'm going to stay up here with you to help if I can.
yeah, because you're in on this one too, right?
So what we'd like to do is if you can state your name and then give us a brief overview of what you're trying to do, so we can get...
I'm Colby Hoffman. I'm a senior at Co Brown, and for your senior project, you have to do something that takes 25 hours. It's supposed to be a big project, something you're passionate about, and I'm building a bridge. It's just going to be a small footbridge, and I'm going to donate it to Co Brown. It's going on the back trails that connects to the cross-country trails, but won't be on the exact cross-country trail. And it's going to be a small footbridge, 6 feet wide, 18 to 20 feet long. And it's going to be mainly for just runners and walkers. The cross-country, winter track, spring track teams all use those trails back there. And it's to cover the small stream, it's dry most of the year. And it's basically just helps increase the safety of that trail. I will be making this bridge out of entirely pressure-treated pine. It's going to sit on 4 deck blocks, each on the corners. And the weight of the bridge is going to keep it in place. I submitted my designs to a teacher at my school, Mr. Kazik, and he liked them. He does a lot of building of his own. He does houses. And he also said that he can take some of his classes along with another teacher out there, and they can maintain the bridge once it's out there. And I will not be doing any filling, and digging will be 1 to 2 feet at most. It's not going to be a permanent structure. We can take it down if necessary, and we have the option to remove it at the end of the season if that becomes an issue. Should do it.
Nicely done.
I kept the picture. Did you pass it on?
You have the plans?
They all have.
Yeah, we all have
them.
them. Yeah,
They all have copies.
Yep, they mail all that stuff out to us. I don't think you get any butters present.
All of those about, not one of them came.
Yeah, I thought, like everybody would have come and
I know,
just like
I know.
rooted you on or something. Because this could be tough.
Yeah, yeah.
So one of these days, Lucy's gonna be in a butter to one of these applications and
Yeah.
fool us and raise her
Well, that'll be
hand over
cool.
there.
That'd be cool. Because you'll have to recluse yourself from reclusing or something. Conservation Commission's here.
Can I make a comment about what I just?
Would that be okay? Yeah.
But one of the things that I hadn't pointed out to Colby, and I wish I had, I believe that this could be applicable for what is called a trail notification, which is simply putting in a bridge, as Mr. Holden just mentioned, he's putting in a bridge that goes bank to bank. And on a trail, it's the same, it's even less of an impact, obviously, that Colby's going to build his bridge that will go from edge to edge. He's not going to put anything in the water. As he's pointed out, it's a muddy spot that's dry in the summer and usually in the fall, and it doesn't have a stream. And so this may just simply be a trail notification and not as it says, a permit by notification, which is even a lesser thing. I'm not sure. I know that he's already had to notify abutters, and I'm not sure that was necessary for a trail permit, but because it's a bridge, it might be anyway, because it's a structure. It's a structure.
All right, so that would be the, so if we were to do an exception, it would carry the same conditional on any and all required state and local approvals.
Right.
So we'll just have that condition.
So did I miss, how long is it gonna be?
18 to 20 feet.
Thank you.
I think it's in his forward,
How wide did you say it was going to be?
5 to 6 feet. I'm probably going to shrink it down to 5.
So I'm going to read through the 5 questions, and you can elaborate if you'd like, or say that you've fulfilled that obligation of the special exception. But after the applicant meets with the Conservation Committee, findings of the Northwood Conservation Commission regarding the proposal are submitted with the special exception application or reviewed by ZBA and are made part of the record of the case.
I believe he's done that.
Just heard that.
Yep.
Dredging, filling, and other operations shall be designed to minimize the adverse impacts on wetlands and the setbacks, even if this requires adjustment in the design outside of the overlay district.
Yeah, like I said, digging is going to be 1 to 2 feet. I'm not doing any filling, so it's pretty minimal.
There should be provisions to be made to restore the site as near as possible to the original grading condition.
There isn't really that much to restore.
It's also a removable bridge, right?
Yeah. It's, yeah.
Statewide wetlands permits shall be obtained when required, and we just mentioned that would be a condition. And number 5 meets the criteria for permit by notification defined in Wetlands Area Code Administration rules. So that being said, is there any discussion, questions, or motions?
I'll go ahead with a motion, and then there can be discussion just to expedite. So, unless anybody else wants to make the motion, I mean, you just never get them. All right, I make a motion to grant the exception. What are we in the Wetland Conservation Overlay District? How do we want that worded? I don't have a. Is it 6? Is it 6A4?
6A4.
You good with? Okay. I make a motion to grant the special exception for 6A4, conditional on any and all required state and local approvals for the footbridge at Coburn Northwood Academy.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
You got a second? Any discussion? I know these trails, I run there every once in a while. I think what he's doing is great. It's such a low impact, it's removable, he's not disturbing anything. I think he's set the criteria for the special exception.
I think it's a real good experience. You got to meet us, too.
But I don't know if we can have a meeting for, 25 hours you said we have to? No.
Yeah, didn't they tell you you had to be here till 10 or 11?
I think somebody put in, 3? I
Well, does community service, does he get extra hours? Do you get?
It's part of the project, part of the 25.
So, there you go.
Zoning board?
Easy, Matt. Probably,
I'm 17.
So, yeah, when you turn 18. Yeah, when's your birthday? Don't put that in the paper.
Yeah, his parents sign off.
So I have a motion, I have a second.
Call the vote.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
You're working with Mr. Kilzer?
Yes.
So check it out.
See, we're not all mean.
I can help with that.
We're not all mean.
Contingent on whether or not you're doing the zoning board.
Yeah, there you go. That's great. Yeah, give us something we can just like sink our teeth
Get your
into.
members going. Come on. We're asking the high schoolers now.
Can I ask one question about
We're lowering the bar.
the Chloe expansion?
Which one?
the quarry expansion, Mr. Holden's thing.
We can't answer much, but
Let me just see if I can. Maybe this is inappropriate, I won't. It's just about what was the variance, back in 2009, there was some variance or special
Oh, I
exception.
thought you already had the answer to that. No?
No, I never really found, what was it actually for, the variance
The
or?
variance that was granted in 2009 was for a non-residential use within the Conservation Overlay District, and somewhere here I had, oh, right here.
Was it specifically for excavation or just simply a non-residential use?
but he had to go back and get it. He said he applied, but did they get it?
I think it was only good for.
Yeah,
When I am gonna give
prior
you
to
full-
2013.
Because this came, I have maps back to 2009, and I don't know what the exact,
I have the minutes and the decision, and it's yours
Okay.
to stay up
Oh,
and
okay.
read tonight, and I'll test tomorrow.
was there, I mean, I found this RSA 155E3, this is an excavation permit that would be issued by the planning board or the ZBA. Is that something that's already been done?
No,
Not
he's
by
gonna
us,
come to the, he will come to Thursday's coming to the
Yes, get a plan.
planning board.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's all in planning board's court. now.
Okay. Thank you. I'm
Right
learning
here,
still.
here's what he was granted.
Okay, so it's just like non-residential.
To develop a quarry within the conservation of use restrictions that limited to single family.
Okay.
You can take that.
Okay.
Be careful, staples or whatever. I just pulled one and it's half out.
Thank you very much.
So we have to read this new information and are we required to do amendments locally or are these just all apply to everyone?
Here's the deal. The planning board is doing some proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance.
Correct.
In this particular case,
The steep slope.
the steep slopes, they are considering to do a conditional use permit, I think, rather than having it as a special exception. And they just wanted to know if there was a concern of this board if that change occurred. I did have a conversation with Laura, which I think will be put back to them as far as her opinion on it, but they had originally asked if this board had any concerns with it changing. Basically, it would completely take it out of your hands and give it to them.
I'm all in favor of that.
That's kind of how I read it too, and I don't really have a problem with that.
Well, they didn't know, and they wanted to,
Was Laura on board with it or?
I'm gonna get her to write it, but she indicated that she felt that if it's working where it is, leave it where it is.
My concern would be if you had right now, having it between the two boards puts it between two different groups of people. So to have steep slope over with one board and have other planning functions with the other board would preclude that, you know, what would happen in the event that the planning board or the zoning board, it could be, or
Well,
selectmen, anybody, or if somebody gets too much say in how everything is, then if you ran into a board that were all of like-minded, you know, like we're building skyscrapers, I don't care, boom, 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 then they could essentially all vote right in a row for skyscrapers, and there would be no, what was the lady, she said safety valve.
Well, here's the other side of it too. That was my concern that I expressed to the planning board, is that now it's in the zoning board's hands, which includes residential as well as non-residential uses in the steep slope. Typically, planning boards don't address residential stuff in general. So there's that side of it. And then the side is that you make a decision, and if somebody's unhappy, first, as you know, they can come to you and do a motion for reconsideration, and then if,
To the selectmen, right?
no, it doesn't, and then if you decide, no, we're satisfied, we made that decision, we're gonna stick by it, they have to appeal it to Superior Court. What happens if it goes to the planning board is if the planning board makes a decision and that person, either side, it could be in a butter that's an aggrieved party, or it could be the applicant, then it has to be appealed back to the zoning board. Now you've got two town boards, one's appealing because it would be in the zoning ordinance. So now we're putting the planning board into the zoning ordinance. So that was my concern. And then you could essentially have to have the town paying for two attorneys if it ends up being litigated
Right.
for two separate town boards, which I'm not sure that's really an effective way to do it, where
there
it
is-
seems to be working well now.
There is that point of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't think we've had it.
What provoked this?
Yeah.
Well, it was a suggestion by the planner, and that's not a criticism of him in any way. He just thought that maybe that might be a way to handle it as conditional use permit rather than a special exception. That was just a recommendation he made.
So, I mean, the first instinct is yeah, anything we don't have to deal with is great, but
If it
to
ain't
act
broke, don't
for,
fix
you
it.
know, act on behalf of the future boards, you know, and potential situations.
Right.
It almost seems like it's, if it ain't broke, don't.
And the zoning ordinance is the domain of the zoning
Right.
board.
And if there was a history of problem with it, then I could see it, you know, like, hey, remember, 2 years ago and blah, 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 you know, but that's not occurred. This is just somebody saying, hey, wouldn't it be a good idea to, do this? And I'm not necessarily sure it is.
Well, I think they want to make some changes to like those percentages and some of the language, which is fine, that's
Yeah.
their job. to-
Like the
to make
impermeable
that-
soil, we like that.
The regulations, be as legally sound as they can be and
Sure.
meet the,
I think we would
master
like it if
plan
they
and-
would keep us a bridge of, or what do we call it? Keep us apprised, thank you.
Right.
My vocabulary left this morning. If they would keep us apprised, so that we might have some more input on, that might help them at some point, but
All right, could we send even a brief memo stating, maybe you want to just say you have no concern about staying within your domain rather than
right.
the other side of it?
That we see, we don't at this point see a necessity to make a change?
Yeah.
I mean, you tell me what you want to say and we'll say it.
Yeah, I would say that what you said, status quo is working. The potential future conflicts between two boards in the same town isn't very appealing.
Right.
Keeping us up to date on new grades and new ideas that they have to help improve the town's
We think that's
permitting and
great.
special exceptions is awesome.
Right, they would do that. They can do their own amendments and then it goes to the voters and then you would have to incorporate that into your decision making. But, I mean,
And then also, by all means, if they have something that maybe they're thinking of behind the scenes, bring it up or come to one of our meetings so we can
Right.
discuss
Okay, I
it.
will
No
relay that.
problem.
But yeah, at this point, I would say, that if, anytime you can throw out an idea and people can come up with not one, but two, but three valid points of maybe why it isn't a good idea, then maybe you're looking at something that isn't a good idea. Not at this point.
okay. So will you somebody make a motion that I can take the minutes and send them a memo or make your comments and relay them to them?
Right, and tell them it's not that we want to keep the work.
Unless one of you
We're-
wants to just
Yeah,
jot down a memo and you
Well, that's hard
authorize somebody to do it.
We just said we don't want extra work, Linda, come on.
I'd like to make a motion that we designate Linda Smith to
Crafty,
reply to the
brilliant letter.
reply to the planning board with the minutes from the last
From
5
what's
minutes.
been
That, you know, we thank them for, you know, thinking in such a manner, but, you know, perhaps they should more thought put into it in that, you know, we had some questions or some points
You're not
that,
concerned about the special exception process as it sets.
no, I mean, again, if it's working, if there's a problem they're aware of, then, yeah, we'd like to know about that, but, we also commend them for, the other work they're doing in changing little things.
Mention our concern for the potential for conflicts in the future.
That's about a big avoid it. That would just look terrible.
And point out to them that more of us were on the hike than were them.
Okay. we'll
4 to
put that
2.
right in there.
4 to 2, we outweighed them.
I second that.
Good. All in favor? Any discussion? Nope. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so next meeting is December 17th. You do have one continued case, which is Linda Savinelli. And she did get a deadline of December 3rd. Everything had to be in, so Susan will mail out any updated info.
So nothing has come in yet?
There's been bits and pieces have come in, different things. But I think I've got to meet with the building inspector and confirm that he has all the rest of the information. None.
In the paperwork that you brought us back, and, you know, in reading through it,
That's just the stuff from the.
but it also says locally that, that a municipality to amend its zoning ordinance to provide for the termination of those prior to 2013 variances. I'm just wondering if that's something that we as a locality should have to address?
Is that, I don't know what you're reading.
That's from that.
The land use
that's the
update?
the land use update.
Also,
Yes, they are addressing that. They've already approved it. It's
so
already
who's
been.
planning board?
Yes.
Okay. How about the part here, the ZBA must adopt a consistent method to vote on variances? That's something we haven't done, so I would recommend we read this because it says requires every zoning board of adjustment to use one voting method consistently for all variance application, which means that whether an application has met all 5 statutory factors for a variance. Some boards vote separately on each factor, each one of the 5, while others take a single up or down vote. So and it says that we've got to have a consistent method and stick to it.
And I think we do. I think there was discussion about the way of voting with the old board that was here, and we decided to stick with this. I can't remember exactly.
I've kind of seen us do it, kind of.
Well, no, I don't think because.
They're asking you to vote, like, do you want to vote on each criteria?
Right, or just as the whole single up-down vote. We've been doing single up-down vote based on, like, if it was a denial, which one of the 5 was the reason they didn't meet.
Yeah, you would have to do that anyway,
So in the motion.
regardless. But the history is that the zoning board always typically voted up or down. And then at one point, it became popular that attorneys were recommending that you vote on each criteria separately. That was recommended to the Northwood zoning board. It was probably only 2 months that occurred. And I know specifically because we used to have to do in the minutes, we had to make sure there was a little chart. Criteria 1, how many votes? Criteria, you know, so, and then how did that equate to up or down?
I like the way we do it
So-
because,
We disbanded that because then there was a recommendation by the NHMA not to do that because you could essentially have kind of a twisted vote depending on the numbers, like the way the math added up. So and it's consistently been just an up and down vote. However, it is important that you clearly state when you make a motion, if you're making a motion to not approve something,
Which
to say
one,
which ones
which one
are
of the five, yeah.
of the five and why, and back it up with
Uh-huh.
your reasons for it.
So any other, I didn't read through the whole thing yet, but perhaps maybe next time.
No, and the other thing that came up was, the state, this board has a procedure that says that if there's, that 3 make a quorum out of the 5, but 3 must vote in the affirmative to pass a motion. The state was not that restrictive, but the state just adopted that policy.
3 of the 5.
You can say we were trendsetters.
And it also says that they amended it from 3 members to, it could be 1 member and 2 alternates. So they adjusted the wording to cover alternates.
Right.
So no interest at all in anybody joining our group?
No, I don't know, I have somebody.
I think you guys did a real good sales pitch with the kid, but you know,
Once the recorders go off, I'll tell you what else.
you could, yeah. Lucy, I think,
anything else on
why
the
not
agenda?
just get on the board? Come on.
No, I think we're good.
We were thinking of doing a Secret Santa. We're gonna do a Secret Santa.
I'll
I have a
second.
motion to adjourn, I have a second. Any discussion?
Call the vote.
How do you vote?
Yeah.
In favor.
Favor?
Yay.
Yay.
Ooh,
Motion passes.
8:30?